Alright, my babies. Nah, that doesn't work. Better? Too much? I don't know, man. Alright, uh, today's video is to a man lost in the dark, an ember can light the way. Here we go. To a man lost in the dark, an ember can light the way. Man is gender neutral, as in anyone who feels lost and there's darkness. The smallest ember, which is basically from, you can say something like this incense, right? The small flare of coal, like that red that kind of like flickers under the wood. That's enough for you to actually for you to see and to have a sense of direction. That's literally it. Mirra. This flavor is mirra, by the way. So the idea is the more there is light, the more options we have. We can definitely take it that way. But is it that in the darkness, what we're doing is searching for light? There's a space here. I'm taking a book. I wrote something once, beautiful, in my book a while back. And I'm gonna try to find it. Here. They wanted light so bad, they forsook the darkness that made them shine. Can you see it? They wanted light so bad, they forsook the darkness that made them shine. So at one point, I was writing about the shadow realm, and I feel like we live in a shadow realm, not in a realm of light. Right? It's because darkness prevails in the absence of light. So, consciousness in essence is basically like the empty vastness where there's nothing, basically. And then from it, light kind of starts. From it, the duality of the world kind of like started existing, I guess. And when I read this, you're lost in the darkness, an ember can light the way. It's by the way the same that's from the Blue White Samurai, which I did not like the ending at all. I thought I ended up in a very stupid way. Yeah, the ending was super fucking stupid. But the idea behind being lost and finding light, the darker the space, the easier for light to penetrate. And that's basically what this is saying. But they're focusing or emphasizing on being lost in the dark. And lost comes from actually having a sense of direction, right? And if this is where I want to go, and I'm not able to figure out how to go there, technically I'm lost. That makes sense, right? So in the darkness, we don't really have a sense of direction, do we? So technically, we're not really lost. When there is darkness, that means there is no more route. Isn't that it? Suddenly, when there's an ember, it shows you a way, not the way. Unless it's an ember from where you want to go. But this definitely is a symbol for hope, I guess, right? When you're lost in the darkness, a small ember leads the way, like a small piece of hope. Like I can see something, so I can walk to it instead of walking in circles. That whole like I don't know, the sympathetic side to not really going in the direction that you want to go to. If that is what I am talking about, I have no idea. I'm still battling with the concept of if you are in the dark, how did you get to the dark to begin with? All right. And circumstance, I agree. I agree. Circumstance. And the one thing I talk about, or the one thing I want us to kind of like point when it comes to circumstance, uh, you cannot control it. Yes. What you can do is control your actions towards it. If as you're going somewhere, something happens, if you're able to handle it, you move forward. If you're able to process it, you take your time and you adjust the pace moving forward. If you're able to handle it, you keep moving forward. That normally ends up with you being breaking, right? Collapsing, not really falling into darkness, but not really enjoying the end result. The reason we're having this conversation is because, like, how the fuck do you get into darkness? You either throw yourself into darkness because you want to explore enough to find another way. And normally, that's what happens when you take a step back, right? Because, like, I'm moving in that direction, but it doesn't really feel right. So you stop and you're trying to process. And that's number two, right? Because number one was what was I power through. One is power through. If you can handle it. Like you're tough. Two is adjust the pace. If you can process what happened. It's a sign of, I guess, maturity because you kind of take a step back. And after taking a step back, you're observing what happened. You're like, should I move at the same pace? Should I move slower? Maybe I should move faster. Maybe I should change direction, right? But if you don't do any of those things, you kind of like stand still and go like, who I, me, or whatever. If you take it personally, I guess. You start really looking at life in a certain kind of way. So what happens is what then is where you kind of like, and I feel when you're not moving, you lose clarity, and that clarity kind of like creates that fog around you, which eventually ends up feeling like you're in the darkness, you're lost in the darkness, because your reality no longer has something to look at, and that loses its light. So we could say lost in the darkness, but the truth is you're not really lost. Because when it comes to the darkness, you're not actually, the old you is lost. That one that was looking at something that no longer exists is lost. It's gone, right? Like, it's more lost as in, like, more lost as in, I dropped my keys in the sea, lost. As in, they exist. You're just, you're not gonna find them, or why the fuck would you waste effort on them? Getting new keys are easier and simpler, and literally, just, I don't know, right? It's easier for you to sometimes or most times it's easier for you to kind of like admit a loss, admit a defeat, admit admit a failure, or admit a A badge is small, admits a bad decision, a bad direction taken, admits weakness. Sometimes it's much easier to do that. And I feel that's when we kind of like feel like we're lost in the darkness. Because whoever we thought we were is kind of gone. And the ember that lights the way is kind of like the hope that you can get over it, or at the very least, a new version of you that's able to navigate the new environment differently. I had to go dark, right? I don't get it. I don't get it. Stagnancy. So, by the way, when something happens to you, if you can handle it, you power through. That ends up with kind of like a collapse at one point, and not necessarily that like when something happens in a situation, you the best course of action is always to like try to understand why, where, even if it's something beyond your control, there is something that it relates to that gives you an opportunity to adjust how you're moving. If you can process what happened, which is basically the sign of maturity, then ultimately you adjust the pace, you kind of like negotiate with the situation. And it's fight, flight, and freeze, right? Kind of feels that way. And to power through, I think, is more flight. And adjusting the pace is fighting. Kind of that's the intention behind it. You're gonna do something about it. And stagnancy is when you're kind of like freezing. Like, I don't know what to do anymore. So that's when your world kind of like turns dark. I love you guys. That's a video. Yeah. Hey. Woohoo.